Hi, my name is Danica Lashenka, and I will be doing my presentation on infant formula. So, part one of my issue will be malnutrition of babies. Infant formula and global malnutrition go hand in hand in the increase of morbidity and mortality rates. Low income developing countries may not have access to clean drinking water, and that can be used to prepare the liquid and powdered formula. Babies younger than 12 months of age should be fed strictly infant formula to get proper nutrients, not toddler formula. And proper nutrition of the infant for the first 3 years dramatically decreases mortality and morbidity rates. So, kind of like a part two of my issue is breastfeeding versus formula. The FDA regulates that formula, they make sure it meets their minimum nutritional needs. The CDC recommends that infants are exclusively breastfed for the first 6 months, although they may need additional iron and vitamin D supplements. Many women in developing countries breastfeed for a better chance of their infant's survival as well. So, some history. In 1865, Justus von Liebig, a German chemist, he developed and marketed the first infant formula, which was made from cow's milk, wheat, malt flour, and potassium bicarbonate. In 1981, the World Health Assembly created an international code of marketing of breast milk substitutes to regulate the sales and advertising of milk formula, although the US to this day has still not adopted this code. The healthcare field has been raising awareness about postnatal care for babies and their overall nutrition in the early stages of life. So the infant formula market is worth an estimated $35 billion in 2022, although recently this market has had many recalls and supply chain issues.
We want to turn now to an important CBS News investigation into powdered baby formulas that the FDA is advising consumers to avoid. This follows at least 5 infant illnesses, including possibly 2 deaths. CBS News has learned at least 8 additional babies have allegedly gotten sick, all from what their family's lawyer tells us was powdered formula made at Abbott Nutrition's plant in Sturgis, Michigan, which has had problems in the past. Here's CBS's Nikki Batiste.
I was panicked. I was crying.
The doctors didn't know what was going on. It was unreal.
Natalie Caselli and Tyler Rowland say in late October, they rushed their son Hayes to the hospital after his fever suddenly spiked and he had blood in his diaper.
You could hear it, like the formula going through and it just going straight through his stomach.
Caselli says she took these pictures of Hayes' Similac baby formula just before doctors gave his diagnosis, salmonella.
I just was like, how does that happen?
4 months later, a potential answer. That formula is among the 4 now recalled types of powder baby formula, all made by Abbott Labs in its Sturgis, Michigan plant.
As early as September of 2021, there was complaints to the FDA. And so when you have these kinds of outbreaks, you need a trusted manufacturer that consumers depend upon to act rapidly, responsibly.
In this statement to CBS News, Abbott says stored samples of the recalled batches tested negative for both Cronobacter and Salmonella, and that at this time, the cause of the infant's infections have not been determined.
How could they have missed this if, in fact, their baby formula was contaminated?
Unfortunately, we often do find that there were shortcuts. There was carelessness, there was oversight.
During an FDA inspection of the Sturgis plant in September, it issued 5 citations. During another inspection, the FDA found several positive Cronobacter results from environmental samples, and a review of Abbott's internal documents by the FDA indicate Abbott previously destroyed formula due to this contamination.
It's horrific to hear that this happened. And now there's 2 babies. I don't even want to start crying, but there's 2 babies that have died. That's really sad.
Baby Hayes is now 6 months old and doing well. The FDA says it continues to investigate the complaints. I asked the FDA this morning when its own tests of Abbott Sturgis plant came back positive for Cronobacter, but so far, Nora, the agency has not answered that specific question.
Nikki Batiste with all that original reporting. Thank you.
First at 5, the recent recall of some popular infant formula has worried a lot of parents. But for one Rio Grande Valley mother, emotions run deep and raw. Her baby died last summer from a bacterial infection. And now, as consumer reporter Marilyn Moritz tells us, the FDA is testing the baby's formula.
He was born healthy. Beautiful, beautiful baby.
This is Azael smiling the July day he was born. He would live 30 days.
I always wanted to know what had happened to my son, and there was not really answers.
Cynthia Salinas says Azael's symptoms started at 2 weeks old, diarrhea, then vomiting. The only thing she says she'd ever fed him was Similac Pro Advanced powdered formula. Doctors sent them home with Pedialyte and Tylenol.
When we went back home, I noticed that it was just getting worse, so I took him to the hospital. Once we were at the hospital, that's just where everything went downhill. He just got really, really sick.
Sick, doctors told her, from salmonella bacteria, which attacked his brain.
This bacteria really, really did so much damage to my baby.
When there was no hope, Cynthia held her son one final time. Cause of death, salmonella meningitis. 6 months later, Abbott Nutrition recalled certain infant powdered formulas, including Similac Pro Advance. At the time, the FDA said it was investigating complaints of Cronobacter and salmonella infections in infants who consumed the formulas.
It just clicked. I just ran to where I had his formula and I checked it, and once I saw it, it was just, my heart just hurt.
The very formula recalled in February, she says she trustingly fed her newborn son last summer.
Right now, the FDA officially says they're investigating 4 Cronobacter infections in children, 2 of them fatal. They have removed the salmonella case from their investigation, but they add that they and the CDC continue to investigate illness.
As for Azael's illness, Cynthia says an FDA officer came to her house in the valley to collect formula samples for testing.
So whenever this recall came out, I felt like betrayed. This is supposed to be a really good formula, and now all this is happening, and you have a lot of unanswered questions going on right now, and hopefully we get answers pretty soon.
She's now pursuing a lawsuit, a mother now left with tears, anguish, and questions.
And I miss him so much.
Marilyn Moritz, KSAT 12 News.
Now, we did contact Abbott Nutrition for their comments. So far, we have not heard back.
Now, do you think that Abbott Nutrition should be held accountable? And if so, how do you think they should be held accountable? So, as we can see from that video, many babies and families are suffering from infant formula recalls and all the shortages that are going on. So my part 2, I'm going to be doing some evidence of both sides. So I'll start with breastfeeding. So breast milk has the best source of nutrients for infants. Babies can have a lowered risk of asthma, diabetes, SIDS, ear infections, and so many other illnesses. Breastfeeding also helps to promote a stronger immune system in the baby. It's also very convenient for the mother. You can breastfeed anywhere, doesn't require any powder or equipment that you need to feed the baby. Breastfeeding also does reduce the risk of mother's cancer. So some formula evidence, so either parent or guardian can feed the infant. It promotes a lot of trust and involvement for both of the parents. It's not just the mother feeding, the father can also help feed as well. Flexibility as well. Bottles can be made in advance, put in the fridge, and then warmed up. Formula is less digestible in infants than breast milk, meaning they will eat less, which means ultimately you will be paying for less formula, which is expensive. Mothers do not need to worry about what they eat or drink that could harm their baby through breast milk, such as alcohol or drugs. So, part 3 is my political, cultural, economic factors. So Islamic law requires that mothers breastfeed for 2 years, no matter what. According to a national survey in low and middle income countries, data showed that only 37% of infants younger than 6 months were exclusively breastfed, and a low of 37% of 6 to 12-month-old infants did not receive any breast milk at all. In a study conducted in 2015, researchers gathered 24 infants who suffered from gastroenteritis and had severe diarrhea. Acute diarrheal illness is a worldwide public health issue and is the second largest cause of morbidity and mortality in kids younger than 5 years old. The researchers gave these infants lactose-free milk in hopes that it would calm their stomachs, and at the end of their study, they found that the severity of the diarrhea in the infant with gastroenteritis was lowered, meaning the lactose-free milk worked. So 37%, like I said, of infants 6 months or younger in low-income countries are exclusively breastfed. I believe that governments should be trying to increase that number. It is illegal for mothers to breastfeed in public in Iran and Saudi Arabia, as though their law contradicts this, as though it's seen as a religious responsibility. So mothers basically can only breastfeed in their home. Some political factors. Did you know that the U.S. is the only high-income country that does not require a workplace to give paid maternity leave? This results in mothers stopping breastfeeding early or not even trying to do it at all. Although Joe Biden has worked during his administration to ensure infant formula safety and availability, he has not enacted any laws regarding the harsh normalization of strict formula feeding rather than breastfeeding. Due to limited legal laws about milk formula commercialization, breastfeeding has become more overlooked. So, in February 2023, Abbott Nutrition issued a recall on multiple of their powdered formulas. About half of infant formula nationwide is purchased by WIC. WIC is the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children. So, considering this posed a very large threat to these families that rely on these products. The Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, also known as WIC, gives formula and food to about 43% of babies and women in the U.S. that fall into low-income families. We also know that the cost of formula is wicked expensive, meaning that families struggle paycheck to paycheck just to be able to afford this formula for their children. Social media has influenced more mothers to breastfeed. I have personally seen a lot of pages for breastfeeding and promoting breastfeeding, and there's a lot of good communities out there that do help. Another consideration, though, is drug use. We do know that many mothers drink and do drugs while they are pregnant and while they do have newborns. If people do drink and do drugs, they cannot breastfeed. So this can also be a problem, meaning that they can't breastfeed, but they also can't afford to buy formula. So in the beginning, as you know, like baby-led weaning for food, you can also do this with milk formula as well. It can definitely help prevent an allergy in the baby for cow's milk. It can also improve calcium when they're younger as well. So another problem that many mothers are facing with breastfeeding is inadequate support to them. Many family members can lack empathy for the mother. Breastfeeding can be very difficult, which is why many mothers turn to strictly bottle feeding and formula feeding. Although many mothers do suffer with a lot of problems during newborn phase and choosing which feeding they're going to choose, the CDC gives many tips and tricks on their website for infant feeding. How to measure feedings, how to store the formula. It even has ones for breastfeeding. Data sheets and fact sheets are available about different formulas to make it easy for parents to choose the best one for them. If their baby has certain illnesses or chronic problems, they may want to choose a different formula from, say, their best friend's newborn. I now have a video that will just do a little compare and contrast about breastfeeding and infant formula. This photo gives some insight into reasons for why mothers pump versus bottle feed. So sometimes women just simply do not want to breastfeed. Sometimes a mother has premature babies or multiple babies at a time, and that makes it very, very difficult to exclusively breastfeed. Sometimes the baby has a difficulty latching onto the breast, which can discourage many mothers. If the mother is returning to work or school, bottle feeding is ultimately the best decision for convenience. Like I said, if you have a premature baby and you want to prefer to see how much milk your baby is getting, you will probably use the bottle instead. And sometimes mothers just don't want to breastfeed because it is painful, or you prefer to only pump and use that breast milk to give to your baby in a bottle.
Parents always want to know, what should we do, formula or breast milk? As a pediatrician, I always recommend breast milk and breastfeeding, although that's not the right answer for every single family. What I like to recommend is happy baby, happy mother, happy mother, happy baby. I will never force a mother to breastfeed who does not want to breastfeed. We do know that breast milk offers fantastic protection for the baby's immune system. The immunoglobulins that get transferred from the mother to the baby stay with the baby for the rest of their life. The gut is colonized initially, and the baby is much less likely to get diarrheal infections, to get ear infections, much less likely to have asthma. It's protective against a lot of common illnesses in childhood. That being said, not all mothers feel breastfeeding is right for them. You don't have to exclusively breastfeed. Some moms breastfeed during the day and they give formula at night. Some moms alternate, and some moms don't breastfeed at all, and that's fine too. The formula that is available on the market now provides the baby with all the vitamins and nutrients as comparable to human breast milk. You have to talk with your doctor which formula would be right for your baby. We recommend babies who drink formula start with cow's milk formula. If there is something wrong, the baby's not tolerating it, the baby has severe rash or bloody diarrhea, let your doctor know, and the doctor will help you choose a different formula for your baby. Babies who are exclusively breastfed at 2 weeks of age should start vitamin D drops, 400 units a day. Babies who are on formula do not need to take vitamins because all of the vitamins are supplemented in the formula. Every family has to figure out what is right for them. Society often pressures parents to do things that they might not feel comfortable about, and that's when you need to talk to your doctor. Some moms want to only breastfeed and don't want to pump. Some moms only want to pump and don't want to breastfeed. Whatever is right for you is what you have to do for your baby, because baby will not thrive if the mom or family is not happy.
So, immunoglobulins stay with the baby for the rest of their lives and are less likely to have childhood illness. As the woman said in the video, many mothers do not feel comfortable breastfeeding, and formula nowadays can provide as much nutrients as breast milk. As she also said, babies that are exclusively breastfed will have to take vitamin D drops, but babies that are formula fed will not. Nowadays, because of our technology, formula can be said to almost be better than breast milk because of the amount of nutrients that is in it compared to the breast milk. So part 5, my summary. The argument between breastfeeding and formula feeding has gone on for decades. While doing research, I was coming across articles from the 1970s all the way up until today. There is so much research regarding both feeding options for infants, with positive and negatives for both. Breastfeeding programs and work programs will be very helpful, and in the future, more needs to be done nationally and locally to make mothers feel safe about breastfeeding or bottle feeding. Workplaces should implement breastfeeding-friendly areas or programs to help new mothers. The shortage of infant formula in 2022 really showed families that depending on this product can result in life or death. New mothers are faced with enough challenges, and being criticized for which feeding practice they use shouldn't be one of them.